The following program is suitable for all ages.
Buffone. A certain magic will always linger with the very name. It speaks of courage and fervor and the world's most brutal game. 55, worn by Doug Buffone, a Chicago Bear through and through. He demanded excellence of himself and anyone wearing navy blue.
You tell me what's going on. This is moronic. We're going to get our whipped all the way down the line. I want somebody to get kicked in the and get out there and play. You're getting paid to play this game. I'm playing right. I don't mind you getting beat. I got my whipped many times. But I tell you, I took somebody down with me. You are a professional team. Act like one, for God's sakes.
Football fans, this is Buffone 55, the John Buffone Show.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Buffone 55, a fast-paced approach to Chicago Bears football analysis. I'm your host, John Buffone. We got a good one for you today. The Bears going into the city of brotherly love to take on the number one seed in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles. Do they stand a chance? Well, we're going to jump into that in a little bit, but before we start, I want to throw it over to my producer, Aldo Gandia, to tell you how the show works, just in case you've never heard it before. Aldo, excuse me, tell me how the show works and tell the people how the show works.
I will tell you and the people that we asked John 5 questions about the Bears and 5 about their upcoming opponent. John has 55 seconds to answer each question. He'll hear a whistle to wind things up. And of course, the 5s are a tribute to Doug Buffone, the great linebacker of the Chicago Bears, who was my boyhood hero. And of course, he was John's uncle. John, before we get started, I am going to ask you a personal question and ask you to, if you don't mind, please share a little bit about how Thanksgiving is shared at the Buffone household.
Well, for the first time in a long time, I can't make it back out to Pittsburgh to see my gargantuous family. There's a ton of them out there, but I can't make it back because, TV is a different kind of industry. TV goes on whether it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, or any other holiday. So I am bummed a little bit about that. But I am having a Friendsgiving on Thursday. Some other media friends that are in the same boat can't go home or can't make it home. So we're just gonna eat all day and watch some football and make the best of it. It should be a good time.
Well, that sounds like a great time. Over at my house, we usually start arguing right about 20 minutes before dessert is served. So.
A tradition unlike any other.
That's right. All right, let's ask the first question here. Again, I'm going to ask 5 questions about the Chicago Bears, and then at halftime, we switch over to 5 questions about their upcoming opponent, the Philadelphia Eagles. The first question has to do with last week's game, John, and boy, oh boy, another disappointing loss. Can you please list for us the reasons that you think that the Bears lost that game against the Detroit Lions? You are on the clock.
For a first time in a long while, I was very disappointed in the defense. They could not get off the field. They gave up some big plays in the air, and they really didn't pressure Matt Stafford at all. They did get 3 sacks, but the line didn't look nearly as fierce as we're accustomed to seeing. And then you see the stupid miscues that really make the difference between a 3-6 team and a 6-3 team, and now a 3-7 team. That 27-yard fumble recovery when they were up 10-0, that's a killer. Those are miscues that you cannot afford to make when you're a fledgling football team trying to stay competitive with some of the good teams in the league. And then you have a boneheaded kicker that was probably employed a couple weeks too long, and then you have the fact that you give up 17 unanswered points from the second quarter to the fourth quarter, and these are little things that matter. Coaching. So like I said, after the whole Green Bay debacle, take your pick. But the problem is the Bears can't seem to get out of their own way in these games. They're competitive, but they just shoot themselves in the foot consistently.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how close they've been in so many games, and in fact throughout the John Fox era, but they just can't turn those close games, those defeats, into victories. And so now the question has percolated throughout the nation, throughout the football world, is can John Fox at this point save his job? That's question number 2, and you are on the clock.
No, 100% no. I mean, I know stability is very important, but not if that current administration is consistently inconsistent. Honestly, I think they should probably get a head start and probably part ways with John Fox around week 13 or 14, see what Vic Fangio can do, and kind of move on from there. I don't like the way that Fox is kind of killing Trubisky's development. They need a real offensive mind in there, not Dowell Loggins, who admittedly didn't completely, I mean, he didn't suck at the play calling this week, let's just call it as it is, but then they kind of went into the hole in the second half, so it fell back into their other ways. I don't think the Bears need a conservative guy who doesn't seem to have the fire for the game anymore. That seemed to be the concern whenever he was coming out of Denver. So you look at all the other things in there. This team doesn't look like it has much preparation going into games. Look at the Packers game. You had 2 weeks, and that's what you came up with? And then you have the undisciplined plays, the terrible challenges. You have awful special teams plays. I mean, name a reason he should stay. I want someone to tell me why he should still be there. You can tell me that he's a fall guy or the personnel's not there, but tell me why he's the right coach for the Chicago Bears. Give me one solid reason, and I'm legitimately would like to hear it. If you're excited about the Bears' future, which I agree that you should be excited about the Bears' future, at no point when you're thinking about that future does it involve John Fox on the sidelines. So I think maybe you go out, you cut ties with him, because Vic Fangio is probably going to be a head coaching candidate for a couple teams. So I think you maybe get a head start on this and start looking about who you want the successor to be on the sidelines.
Well, Isaiah Robles in our chat room asks, do you think that John Fox is sabotaging the Bears?
Well, I don't know if he's purposely doing it, but in a way, yeah. I mean, I think his style, and I think the way that he coaches, and I think the way that he is just isn't helping the development of anybody. I think that you can't be overly conservative with a team that doesn't have the talent all the way there yet. So, in a way, he's sabotaging it, but I don't think it's on purpose. I just think that's the way he is.
Yeah, I think he's too prideful of his won and lost record, his legacy in the NFL. Yeah. He definitely doesn't want to lose on purpose, but he just doesn't realize that his coaching methods are outdated. There's a lot of NFL head coaches who are so stubborn in their ways and don't adapt to the new realities of football. And that leads to question number 3. Tariq Cohen and Adam Shaheen were not on the field for that final drive against the Lions on Sunday, and neither was Dontrell Inman. Those 3 players and Jordan Howard were the best offensive players in the game. Are you buying John Fox's reasoning for not having them in the game when he said that the young guys don't know all the responsibilities of a 2-minute offense, and yet and also that Inman is new to the team? John, I'm dying to get your perspective on this, and you are now on the clock.
Well, this continues my point. Why aren't some of your best weapons prepared for the 2-minute drill? This is like Dowell Loggins saying the defense setup kind of dictates who he puts on the field. This isn't week 1 or even week 6. It's week freaking 11. You've had 4 months to go over the 2-minute drill. If you want to make the case for Inman, fine. He doesn't know it yet, fine. But Cohen and Shaheen, come on. I mean, he's either lying or they're simply not preparing the guys, or they just, it seems like guys seemingly disappear from these games sometimes. Like when Cohen wasn't getting snaps and the play calling just kind of falls into ruts, or it gets confused, or they set things in on cruise control and they just kind of forget about stuff. But I mean, very few things make sense about this offense. And we're to the point now where we have to talk about whether we believe the head coach. I mean, this is kind of too much, because the guys in the locker room, they might still have faith in the coaching. I can't speak for them, but name me anyone else who really trusts these coaches to have the answers, to tell me that these guys who have been on the practice field since August don't know the responsibilities of the 2-minute drill when they're some of your best weapons. I don't buy that.
I am so with you on that. And just how frustrating is it to have a head coach who is basically admitting that we have not properly prepared our young players to be on the field. And then they have Trey McBride on the team, who was picked up, 2 3 games into the season. They had him out there during the 2-minute offense. So it just felt like a big fabrication on John Fox's part. And boy, we've had it here. We are we've got like a countdown clock to January 2nd. I know you'd like to see him fired earlier, and so would I, but it probably won't happen until right after the final regular season game. We'll see.
I agree.
All right, looking forward to this Sunday's game against those incredible Philadelphia Eagles. Are you concerned that the Bears may not be able to infiltrate this Eagles offensive line, especially now that Leonard Floyd is out with an injury and Pernell McPhee appears to be just a shadow of himself? I mean, he's playing hard, but he's been playing a little undisciplined and just not getting much of a pass rush on. And do you have confidence that head coach John Fox might entrust some of the pass rushing responsibilities on rookie Isaiah Irving, who, in my eye, looked impressive during preseason? John, I'd love your thoughts on this. You are on the clock.
I unfortunately think Carson Wentz is going to have plenty of time to throw the ball this week, and that's bad news. No Leonard Floyd, that's a killer. That injury is just a killer. McPhee, he shows bursts at times, but it's obviously just not there anymore. Irving did show some flashes on special teams last week, which was fun, but throwing him into the fire against the Eagles, that's like a, hey, welcome to the NFL kid kind of moment. Look for maybe Sam Acho to get some more time, a veteran who he does have it between the ears as far as football IQ goes, but he's going to be far from the best athlete on the field. Honestly, if I'm John Fox at this point, and I'm never going to tell you that I am, but if I was, I would just start doing some off-the-wall things to try to make it look like a genius. So, I mean, no one's going to be impressed with a conservative 3-7 team at this point. So if I'm John Fox, I'm just making up weird stuff, and I'm throwing random guys in, because if it works out, it'd be like, hey, I'm kind of a defensive genius here. I knew it all along. But I think Vic Fangio still has plenty to prove if he has aspirations of being a head coach in Chicago or elsewhere. So I think it's going to be up to the front three to really make most of the noise this week. But they're gonna have a rough go of it.
I think you make a good point in that, let's open up that defensive playbook and see some exotic blitzes. Definitely throw some things at the Eagles that they have not seen on tape before. I'd love to see Isaiah Irving out there and throw in some safety blitzes. I remember Crevon LeBlanc being pretty good at the defensive back blitz. So maybe we'll see some of that exotic stuff and, play a little less conservative and a little more go for broke. That would be.
What do you have to lose?
Right.
What do you have to lose at this point?
It would be fun to watch, at least for the fans.
Yeah.
At this point, you know what? They're 13.5 points underdogs. So do something. Goodness. All right, John. Question number 5, our final question that's directly related to the Chicago Bears is, I wanted to get your take on the Pro Bowl. Fan voting ends for the Pro Bowl December 14th, so there's still plenty of time for us to cast votes. So who would you encourage your listeners to vote for from the Chicago Bears and why? You're on the clock.
It's got to be Akeem Hicks. I've said it before. I'll say it again. He's the heart and soul of this defense. I've talked about guys you'd run through a wall for. That's Akeem Hicks. That's a guy that I'd run through a wall for. He is so disruptive, so big, so forceful. I don't know a team in the league that wouldn't love to have this guy. He has 7 sacks, 36 total tackles, but a lot of what he does can't be put in a box score. He's just so disruptive. And the defense has taken a big stride this year, and there's plenty of credit to go around for that. But Akeem Hicks is a big reason. And like I said in the last question, if the Bears are going to have any success up front this week against Philadelphia, it's going to be because of Akeem Hicks. And he always seems to have the right attitude. Chicago is lucky to have him for the foreseeable future. He goes out there, he's all beaten up, and he's still playing as hard as he can for this 3-7 squad that doesn't seem to be going anywhere this year, but he still goes out there every week. I think that he's a slam dunk Pro Bowler, and if he somehow is left off the roster, it's a shame.
I totally agree. I mean, there was talk 2 or 3 weeks ago, it hasn't been as loud as it was back then, that he should get consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. And I hope that that talk continues to heat up. I would love to see him get that national recognition. In fact, so many of the Chicago Bears, like Jordan Howard, do not get the national recognition that they deserve. And Howard is the second leading rusher in the NFC. I think that he deserves a vote for the Pro Bowl. Those two guys.
It's unfortunate because you listen to some of these podcasters, you listen to some of these national radio hosts. It's all the same. It's like, yeah, Jordan Howard's good, but he's not fast, and he's not flashy, and he does this and it does that. It's you know what? If you're that high up in the rushing, then you're doing something right. So just because he doesn't run a 4.2 40, or maybe because he doesn't make crazy spin moves or something like that. I think people get too enamored with the glitz and glamour sometimes, and just realize how of a reliable back Jordan Howard really is.
Oh my goodness, I am so happy he's a Chicago Bear. What a great draft pick by Ryan Pace, and what a great free agent acquisition by Ryan Pace. All right, we now must talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. We got 5 questions headed your way, and the first one is going to be the toughest for us to hear, because this is a pretty impressive 9-1 Eagles team. But I want to get your take. How impressed are you by their play, John? You're on the clock.
Well, as I said before, I kind of live in the Baltimore market, but I work in the Philadelphia markets. There are Eagles fans all around me all day, every day. And you know what? They aren't as miserable to be around as some people think that they are, mainly because they're much like Bears fans, where they're always waiting for the other shoe to drop on them. They have no Super Bowls to their name, so they're always cautiously optimistic, or they're depressingly pessimistic. So it starts with the quarterback. Carson Wentz is an MVP candidate in his second year. But, I mean, they're also solid up front on both ends of the ball. One of the best offensive and defensive lines in football. Yeah, talking to some Eagle fans before the season, they were thinking this was an 8-8 team, maybe 9-7 with an outside shot at the playoffs. And now they are excited. But they are also nervous as hell because they're getting their hopes up, and they don't like to do that too much, and they don't want to get into the playoffs as the number 1 seed and then lay an egg in the divisional round. But at least they know they do have their guy under center in the long term in Carson Wentz. His team's been put together pretty well.
They really have, and you are working in that market, and Shane Marsaw, who is one of the co-hosts of Bears 100 Proof, he has tons of family members who are Philadelphia Eagles fans, and he's going to be spending Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, boy.
So, Shane, I love you, and I wish you the very best.
Oh, man, Godspeed.
Yeah, he says that this Sunday is his Super Bowl game, so he's praying for an upset so badly. All right.
Oh, yeah, it's for the office. Same. I got a bunch of Eagles fans around me in the office. I don't need this.
Well, you won your Super Bowl game against the Steelers.
True. I'm good. I'm already. I got the ring ordered and everything. We're dropping the banner next week, and we're good to go.
That's hilarious. Okay, question number 2. Anything about this Eagles organization and how they've been constructed that Ryan Pace and the Bears organization should learn from in their rebuilding efforts? John, you're on the clock.
Like I said, it starts with a QB. They traded up to get Carson Wentz. They traded up to get their guy, much like the Bears did. The Eagles have a quarterback coach in John Buffone that has really been instrumental in progressing Carson Wentz. Look for him to be an offensive coordinator and maybe even a head coach sometime very soon. And that tells you about how it is to progress a young quarterback and how important that is as far as the coaching staff goes. But they had to clean up the whole Chip Kelly disaster, and they did so quickly. They built up the lines to push people around. Something I think Ryan Pace is doing, much like the Eagles, is attempting to diversify the offensive weapons. The Eagles have thunderous backs in LeGarrette Blount and now Jay Ajayi, with little scat backs with a change of pace guys like Kenyon Barner, sometimes Corey Clement. The big thing right now that the Bears need to look over at the Eagles is put the right coaches in place to help your young talent succeed. Take the hint, look over there, because they got a quarterback coach who they didn't even allow to, they denied him the access to interview for other coaching jobs last year because he was so instrumental in Carson Wentz's progression that they wanted him in Philadelphia for at least another year. So that tells you how important some of these position coaches are.
That's John DeFilippo, correct?
Yes.
I've been meaning to do some homework on him because, I keep hearing about him as a potential head coach candidate. And I'd love love to see a new face be a head coach for the Chicago Bears as opposed to some coach who was a retread and has failed in other places to win a Super Bowl. We shall see what happens. All right. Before I ask you question number 3, I just want to give a special shout out to the people who have visited on the chat room and are interacting. Isaiah Robles, Benjamin Drizgula, they're being very active on the chat room. And then we've got a number of other people who are in the chat room and listening in. And a special shout out to Dubai Mark, who sent me a personal message saying how much he enjoys all of the programming on the Bears Barroom Radio Network and this show. And of course, Mark is listening from the other side of the world. Isn't that cool?
Whew. Yeah, we're a global audience. I love it.
How about it? All right. Question number 3. Do you think Ryan Pace's decision to not re-sign or franchise tag Alshon Jeffrey was his biggest offseason blunder in 2007? You are on the clock.
Yeah, in a way, if I had to relabel it, it would be the wide receiver position as a whole. He let Alshon Jeffrey go, which at the time I kind of understood. He was a guy that couldn't stay healthy, and he was potentially asking for a lot of money. So I get it. Okay, let him go. His stats aren't eye-popping this year. 38 receptions for over 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. I mean, what he does is more importantly is what he does for the other receivers on the field, creating space. But you at least need to have a solid backup plan, and they had a slim margin for error with wide receivers this year, and that kind of blew up the day that Cam Meredith's ACL blew out. Then you take some low risk and even lower reward chances on Kendall Wright, Marcus Wheaton, which has been a huge disappointment. And then you hope Kevin White isn't a complete and utter bust, which it's looking like he is. So it was Murphy's Law, basically. Everything that could have went wrong did go wrong. So I think the Inman trade was a step towards rebuilding next year's receiving core, where they should at least sign one big free agent like Allen Robinson or Jarvis Landry. So yeah, I think Jeffrey was a factor in Pace's biggest blunder, but I think the entire position was the biggest blunder. So I'm going to give him one more offseason to before I really crush him for it. But this year did not go over well.
Yeah, and Shane actually has said this, that last offseason was the year of the quarterback. Shane said you got to find a quarterback this offseason, and now he's kind of proclaimed this not only the year of the new coach, but also the year of finding a wide receiver who will complement Trubisky for the next 10 years. And I totally agree with that approach. All right, I got to ask you this question about that Eagles' strong pass rush. I'm a little worried about what's going to happen Sunday. Is this Bears offensive line up to this task? And have you seen enough of Trubisky to feel confident that he can deal not only with the pressure from that Eagles front line and Jim Schwartz's blitzes, but also that hostile venue? John, you're on the clock.
I think there's going to be some substantial amount of pressure on Trubisky this week. So you have you got to get the Eagles off balance. Remember the first quarter last week against the Lions? That was kind of fun. It wasn't the status quo. It caught Detroit off guard with some play action and some different looks. Run, pass isn't going to do it against this team, and quite frankly, run, pass doesn't do it against just about any team, but especially Philadelphia. So if you line up the Bears O-line versus the Eagles D-line, it's going to be a long day and a lot of scrambling from Mitchell Trubisky, so I'm not overly confident. Aldo, do you think I'm being overly pessimistic about this? Because I don't like this matchup at all.
I do not at all think that you're being overly pessimistic. I do think that in this case, while I would love to see the Bears open up the playbook and have Trubisky throw, I think that this is one of those games that we need to see Jordan Howard run 30 times. You need that offensive line blocking forward and creating holes. I haven't looked at where the Eagles are on rush defense, but I think this is one of the cases where I might excuse John Fox's conservatism, for a certain segment of the offensive play scheme. But then the other thing is there was an item in the newspaper about how well Jordan Howard runs when Kyle Long is in the lineup. So Kyle Long will be in the lineup, and hopefully he doesn't make any dumb penalties. So run early, run often, use Cohen, Tariq Cohen creatively, and let's get out of there with a win. So
that sounds great, and you made me believe it there for a second. But it's going to be an uphill climb.
It's my old flag football coaching coming out on me. All right, for the Eagles, the Bears are a home match that is sandwiched in between road games with the Cowboys, which they won last week easily, 37-9. And then next Sunday, December 3rd, against the Seahawks. So I'm wondering, is there any chance that this Philly team is ripe for a letdown game? And this is the final question we have here before we get your prediction. John, you're on the clock. Actually, I'm going to turn off the clock, take as much time as you want, and then we'll get into your prediction. Go right ahead.
I don't know if I need 55 seconds for this, but if this game was in Chicago, I'd say there was a small chance for a letdown, but the Eagles have home field advantage to play for. They want that number 1 seed. Every game is super important for them. They're only a game ahead of the Saints and Vikings for that number 1 seed. So they're going to be coming into this game flying high off of that Cowboys win. I'm sure they're going to be confident, and rightfully so. A lot of people think that can lead to a team being overconfident and then dropping off against lesser competition, but I see this as a team that's expecting to win because they know how to do it and they know how to get the job done. Unlike some teams that will remain nameless that may be expecting to lose because they can continuously find ways to do so, I think that the Eagles are coming in with the right kind of confidence, and they're going to be at home against a lesser opponent, knowing they need every win possible to secure that number 1 seed. So, oh, goodness gracious, I let down. No, I want to say yes, but I don't see it.
I don't blame you one bit. But at least give us an entertaining game. You know, there was one thing about that Detroit Lion game Sunday that, and I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I'm very old at this point, and so I certainly get disappointed when we lose a game and I throw things around. But I look back at that game and at least I say, hey, at least it was an entertaining game. I wasn't, we weren't blown out. And so
something to watch.
At this point, I'll take whatever you can give me. Give me a couple of touchdowns, Trubisky. All right, prediction time.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I actually circled this game as my big upset pick because I thought the way that the Bears are playing, they could go into Philly, get after Wentz, set the tone, get a few turnovers, and shake up the NFC race. Since then, I've lost every iota of that feeling. The Bears right now are just good enough to break your heart. They're going to go into this game, and I feel like they're going to hang with the Eagles for a little while. I think early on this game's going to be tight, but it's the little stupid mistakes that are going to do it. It's going to be jumping off sides on a field goal attempt. It's going to be giving up a punt return touchdown. It's going to be an inopportune turnover that blows the game open. It'll be a cornerback that falls down and gives up a 60-yard touchdown. Does any of this sound familiar? Because it's all happened so far this year. So I think it's going to be either a death from a million little cuts, or maybe it's just going to be a couple huge gashes that really do the Bears. And I have the Eagles taking this game 31-20, which I believe would mean they would cover the spread if you're into that kind of thing. But yeah, I think the Eagles end up winning this game 31-20. But it is a time for giving thanks, Aldo. So I think you should always be thankful because there's going to be those who are less fortunate. You could be a fan of the Cleveland Browns, who are consistently the laughingstock and punchline of the NFL. Or you could be a fan of the Buffalo Bills, where they haven't been in the playoffs in 18 years, and your last appearance was losing on the Music City Miracle, which was a few years being removed from losing 4 straight Super Bowls. So you could also be a fan of the New York Jets, where you're still clinging to the memory of Super Bowl III and Joe Namath in the yesteryear. Or you could be a fan in San Diego or St. Louis, where your team was ripped away from you and you don't even have football to watch anymore on Sunday. So, as bad as it may seem, Bears fans, there's always those who are less fortunate. But before we go, I just want to say that the Bears Ballroom Radio Network offers a variety of shows, not just this one. We got a lot of cool stuff on there. Stop by BearsBallroom.com, where Brett Mailey, he's going to begin a new series of articles on the Chicago Bears' most frustrating moments and games in history. I don't know how he's going to sift through all those, but that should be good. Then Kevin Schrader, he's going to continue his weekly series of grading the Chicago Bears players' performances. And Kevin was one of the last holdouts on whether or not John Fox should be fired, but I think he's seen the light and he's giving him a failing grade. So remember to subscribe to the Bears Barroom Radio Network. The easiest way is to go to podbean.com and type in the search bar Bears Barroom, and right there we're going to pop up, and from there you can download us to any of your podcast delivery channels. You can do the same with iTunes, type in Bears Barroom, and there you go. And we also have a YouTube channel if that's what you're into. We offer up analysis on all the Bears players. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Bears Barroom, and you can find me on Twitter at JD Buffone with all my snarky comments, intelligent or otherwise. But that will do it for this edition of Buffone 55. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, you can listen to the entire show over again if you missed something or want to hear it again once this goes into podcast version in about a little over an hour. So thanks for joining us. Enjoy the game. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We will see you next week.